Great. Thanks so much. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us at the Citgo Title V Renewal Public Information Session. Thanks for coming to tonight's session. I'm Tony Bianchini. I'm a principal consultant with Environmental Resources Management. We're an environmental consulting firm with offices in New Jersey and across the world. Tonight, we're here for the Citgo Virtual Information Session about the Citgo's facilities based in Linden. The facilities are located in Linden at 4801 Southwood Avenue, along Lower Road and Marsh's Dock Road. I'll be leading the information session tonight, along with representatives from Citgo and ERM. Tonight's information session is part of Citgo's compliance with New Jersey's environmental justice law and the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's Administrative Order 2125. Our objective tonight is to provide you with more details about the Citgo facility and its Title V permit renewal application, and give the public a chance to make comments and ask questions. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for playback after tonight's session. Next slide, Bella. Great. Tonight's agenda is going to cover a number of different things. First, representatives from Citgo and ERM are going to be introducing ourselves. Next, I'll be talking about the rules of engagement to make this as a productive and collaborative discussion tonight as possible. Don Griffin, the Environmental Health and Safety Manager from Citgo, will be talking more about the Citgo facility and the company's work in Linden. I'll be talking more about the environmental justice process and more about Administrative Order 2125. Josh Hemperly from ERM is going to be talking more about the Title V permit renewal and details from that. I'll be talking more about the DEP's EJ mapping tool and the cumulative stressors in this OBC in Linden. And finally, at the end, you'll have a chance to make public comment and ask any questions and make comments. There's a couple of acronyms you're going to hear on tonight's call. If you're unfamiliar with them, we're going to be using shorthand some of the time. New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection is NJDEP or DEP. The Environmental Protection Agency is EPA. Environmental Justice is EJ. And the Administrative Order is AO. Next slide, Bella. So next, we're going to be doing some brief introductions and opening remarks. We're joined tonight by Don Griffin from Citgo, as I mentioned, and Josh Hemperly from ERM. Don, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good evening, folks. Thanks for joining us. My name is Don Griffin. I'm the Environmental Health, Safety, and Security Manager for Citgo Petroleum's Terminal and Pipeline Operations, and my region is the Northeast region from New Jersey to Maine. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. Josh, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, sure, Tony. Yeah, and I'll turn my camera on for my slides later, but good evening, everyone. I'm Josh Hamperly with ERM. I'm a principal consultant and air permitting subject matter expert, and I've supported Don and the Citgo facility with their air permitting and compliance needs.
Great. Thanks so much, Josh. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm Tony Bianchini, have been involved in community relations and public relations for a good 25 years, a longtime resident of New Jersey for 40 plus years. And have always been involved in community relations. So I'm looking forward to a good discussion tonight. Next slide, Bella. So here's the rules of engagement for tonight. We're joined by people on the phone and also on Zoom. Everyone's going to be muted unless you're called upon. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, feel free to put them in the Q&A chat at the bottom of your screen. We're going to be reading those questions first, followed by live Q&A once we finish that Q&A in the chat. When you come online, please make sure you're off mute, share your name and your hometown and any contact information. We have your email address already from when you pre-registered for the event, but if you have any other information you want to share with us so we can get back to you, if there's not a comment addressed, please let us know what that better contact information is. If you want to, you have a chance to make comments tonight, but there's also a 60-day comment period. The comment period started back in August, on August 16th, and it's going to end October 18th, a month from today. You can email us at the Citgo email address at the top right of your screen, or the mailing address to Don's attention in Pennsauken. Next slide, Bella. Now I'm going to turn it over to Don Griffin, who's going to talk more about the Citgo facility in Linden. Go ahead, Don.
Thanks, Tony. So at Citgo Petroleum, we make fuels and products that you all use in your everyday life. We refine, transport, and market these motor fuels, lubricants, petrochemicals, and other industrial products. Citgo owns and operates terminal facilities across the country, but in Linden, New Jersey, they store and distribute a variety of petroleum products such as ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel, jet fuel, ethanol, and gasoline products. So as we mentioned earlier, we've got two facilities. The first facility is located at 4801 South Wood Avenue, and the second facility is located on the corner of Lower Road and Marsh's Dock Road on the other side of the turnpike, the one that you see if you drive the turnpike and you see the Drive Safely tanks. I recognize those. The next slide is a visual that shows the locations highlighted. Are we there, Bella?
Yep.
And so the one that's in the lower right corner, that's known as the Warner's Terminal, and the one that's in the to the left is known as the Tremley Terminal. They're connected by pipelines, and so we have access through our dock and also through pipeline connections, as well as truck loading facilities at the Warner's Terminal. And the next slide, as I stated, Citgo has a large group of terminals across the eastern half of the country. Linden is one of the many terminals that we have that ensure customers can efficiently and adequately fuel everything from automobiles to airplanes. We are committed to providing the highest standards for safety, product quality, technology, environmental compliance, and customer service. The next slide, we've been for a long time we've been involved in Citgo's community efforts. Our donations to the Linden Fire Department help to purchase personal protective gear and equipment, and we participate in them with our fire prevention program, as well as the Linden Public Schools donating money for their supplies to the Board of Education.
All right. Thanks so much, Don. I'm going to take it back over from here. We're going to
Tony.
talk a little bit more about environmental justice now, and just give you an overview of the process. In September 2020, Governor Murphy signed a bill that the state legislature passed on environmental justice that was asking the DEP to look at public health impacts and environmental stressors while they were reviewing permits for new, upgraded, and expanded facilities. Citgo is one of the many facilities in Union County and Linden that's subject to this AO 2021-25, as it's a major permit source holder that's located within a defined overburdened community. This law is really about ensuring that industrial facilities like Citgo communicate with their neighbors, talk to them about what's going on at their site, talk to them about more details about their Title V permit renewals. And that's why we're here tonight. If you want to check out the DEP's website, they have a great website with a lot of information about environmental justice and a really helpful tool called EJ Map. That's available at the link you see at the bottom of your screen. It's a short link, so it's bit.ly/EJMap, and it gives you a tool that we're going to talk about in a little bit. First, I'm going to turn it over to Josh Hemperly from ERM to talk about the Title V permitting process. We're going to talk to you more about what that process is about and how Citgo fits into it.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
Thanks.
Like I identified in my introduction, I'm here this evening to give you a little bit of background into air pollution permitting with respect to the Citgo-Linden facility. So their current operating permit is called a Title V permit, and that's Title V of the Clean Air Act, and defines the measures a facility must take to control air emissions to protect the surrounding neighborhoods and communities. The permits are issued by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP, as Tony identified earlier. And those are facilities that emit air pollution emission thresholds above a major source threshold. And that'll come up in a couple of slides. I'll explain that a little bit more. But essentially what it does is it dictates the requirements from the federal which is the EPA, and the state, which is the DEP regulations on both a facility-wide basis and an individual emission unit basis. You go to the next slide. Great. So due to the nature of Citgo's operations in Linden, the facility maintains equipment that stores or facilitates the movements of hydrocarbons. So we have your major sources listed here, which is essentially the equipment is mostly tanks with both a truck and marine loading rack for transfers. Additionally, they also maintain diesel fire pumps in the event of an emergency. Like Don touched on previously, the facility is not only storing the gas or diesel people fill up at the pump with, but also a variety of other petroleum products that drive industry. Next slide. So with respect to the air control measures, on site, Citgo has 2 air emission control devices. I identified the truck loading rack and the marine loading rack previously. Well, these are the control devices for those. The vapor combustion unit, which controls VOC emissions by destroying VOCs through combustion or through burning them. And there's also the vapor recovery unit at the marine loading rack, which converts VOCs back into a liquid product. So both devices are highly efficient as dictated by DEP and EPA regulations. Next slide, please. So I did mention those significant emission rates previously, so this is where that comes back up. So again, due to the nature of the operations at Citgo, the facility is considered major or a Title V site because of its emissions potential to emit VOCs. The actual emissions from the site are actually much lower than what is in the operating permit. Remember, those are based on potential. The facility is currently operating under an application shield until the Title V renewal process and associated modeling is approved. They did submit that to DEP in April of 2021. Next slide, Tony. So as part of the Title V renewal process and as operations change at the facility, Citgo has to modify their Title V air permit. So those most recent modifications were mostly administrative in nature. So this first bullet, they were removing non-ULSD, so they'll only burn ultra-low sulfur diesel, which is much cleaner. They also updated emission point inventory information at the request of DEP. So that is stack flow rates and temperatures. And this third bullet, they also needed to incorporate some hazardous air pollutant emission limits. And that was due to a change in regulations, not to a change in the operations of the facility. So none of those requested changes reflected any operational changes or any increase in existing emissions or authorize any new air emissions. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Tony.
Great. Thanks so much, Josh.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about the environmental justice process before. I want to talk more about overburdened communities now. The EJ law is all about the DEP looking at these 26 public health and environmental stressors during permit reviews. They're looking to identify overburdened communities by 3 key areas. It's the percentage of minority population in the census block, the percentage of low-income households, and also the percentage of households with limited English language proficiency. This area of Linden is designated an OBC due to the fact that 56% of the residents identify as minority, which is over the geographic point of comparison. The OBC also has a cumulative stressor total of 22 out of those 26 stressors, and we're going to cover that in detail in the next few slides. Bella, next slide, please. Here are the 22 stressors that are in Linden. On the next page, I'm going to show you the report from NJDEP's EJ mapping tool. This is just to show you a little bit more about what those stressors are. While there's 22 stressors in this OBC, it's important to remember that Citgo only has an impact on 7 of these 22 stressors. There's a lot of other facilities and other things in the area that Citgo does not have an impact on. Next slide, Bella. Here is the first page of that report you find on DEP's EJ mapping tool. Again, that link is bit.ly/EJmap. You can go to the website and view it by overburden community, stressor summaries, and facility summaries in different tabs. You put in Citgo's email mailing address, 4801 Southwood Avenue in Linden, and then you can see the facility and all the other things around the facility. One tab on that is that overburden community summary. So it shows you on the right side what are the adverse stressors. And you will see that all of these on this page are adverse stressors. Bella, can you switch to the next page, please? You'll see on this page that there are 4 that are not adverse stressors in this area. And that the ones that are not adverse stressors are impaired surface water, combined sewer overflows, drinking water violations, and lack of open space. Next slide, Bella. The next 2 slides, we break down again those 22 stressors and the 7 stressors that Citgo has an impact on. The first 4 stressors are in that air category. The first one is ground level ozone. You'll see on the right side that there are no new air emissions of ozone precursors that are proposed as part of this air permit. Cancer risk from diesel particulate. Also, they did not call for increased truck traffic, no additional railway capacity, or installation of additional diesel-fired internal combustion engines. As far as cancer risk from air toxics, again, the annual air emissions are not being increased as a result of the permit. For non-cancer risk from air toxics, the same thing, they're not being increased. If you switch to the next page, Bella, you'll see the other 3 of the 7 stressors. It involves car traffic, railway traffic, and heavy duty traffic. The Citgo permit renewal is not calling for additional traffic in this area, so it's not going to be an increase to those stressors. Next slide, Bella. As you've heard tonight, Citgo is committed to being transparent with its stakeholders, reaching out to its stakeholders and educating them about this process and about their permit. We communicated and educated stakeholders in a number of different ways. We put it on the DEP's website over a couple months ago, along with a copy of this presentation. Also advertised it in 2 newspapers and sent a letter to property owners, tenant holders, and easement holders within 200 feet of the property. As I mentioned before, it's a 60-day comment period. The comment period opened August 16th, and it ends a month from today, October 18th. You can email us at that email address at the bottom of your screen, or send mail to Don in Pensauken at the bottom right of your screen, or you could comment tonight. So we hope that you guys have a chance to comment tonight. Next slide, Bella. Now it's time for public comment. We have about 12 attendees on the call. Just to recap the ground rules, everyone's going to be muted unless you're called upon. I'll check out, it looks like we have some stuff in the Q&A that we'll read first, and then we'll go to the live Q&A. All right, so the first question comes from Brooke Helmick. Brooke, I can read your question, or you could come off of mute.
Hi, Tony, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Amazing. I have 2 questions. First, when I identify myself, my name is Brooke Helmick. I serve as the Director of Policy with the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance. I have 2 questions today, mainly around air pollution. Actually, 3. Let me recount. My first question is, what pollutants, if any, are emitted from the VCUs in the VOC combustion process? My second question is, what steps is Citgo taking to increase energy efficiency, reliance on renewable energy where possible, and decrease co-pollutant emissions? And my third question is similar on the co-pollutant line. I heard you say that your air permits are not being increased, but what is Citgo doing to decrease their emissions? Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your questions. Don, do you want to take a shot at those questions one at a time?
Yeah, I might need to pull up something, but to your first question, you wanted to know what were the pollutants that come from the vapor combustion unit, and was that related to the VCU as a whole, or did you say as products of combustion?
as products of combustion, but also curious to hear about VCU as a whole, if you have information you think is worth sharing.
There's a small amount of volatile organic compounds that are emitted from the stack. There are also the standard combustion components that you would find, which are CO2, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, some particulate matter. And I'm doing this all off the top of my head, and I don't know that I missed. If I missed something, did I miss something that's pretty obvious, Josh?
No, I think you just said NO2, but of course we're going to consider NO2 and NO as NOx.
Yeah. But nitrous oxide, including the NO2, CO2, and some particulate matter. I could look into that a little further, but it's all part of our permit, which is available for review. They're all listed in there. And we may actually have them listed for, back on. Hold tight. Let me see. We had this listed on one of our earlier slides. And
we had the facility totals in the previous slides, but not for the VCU.
I did. Yeah. So it's, NOx, CO, SO2, total suspended particulates, particulate matter 10, which is 10 microns. HAPs, which are hazardous air pollutants that are a subcategory of all the VOCs, and CO2 equivalent. So I missed one there, the SO2. The next question you had was related to energy efficiency, and if you could repeat that, I'd appreciate it.
At the terminal's reliance on renewable energy where possible and to decrease co-pollutant emissions. Particularly, I think that's also in conjunction with what you mentioned about the emissions from the combustion process.
So we aren't generating renewable energy. There's in New Jersey, there's renewable energy is part of the electric grid that we all pull from. So as users of the electric grid, some of the energy that we use is renewable energy. As far as reducing co-pollutants, some of our control devices actually recover the fuels during the loading process. They capture them and return them to storage. So that's an efficiency that's not quite often understood. But it's one of the methods that we use in one of our control devices. And then the other thing you asked about was renewable energy. Well, so there's a lot of things that are evolving. We are utilizing ethanol is part of the is put into the gasoline products that are sold at the retail stations. So 10% of every gallon has renewable ethanol fuel in it. And then we also have efforts and initiatives for other types of renewable fuels, such as sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, and other biofuels, biodiesel, and things like that. They're utilized in different portions of the fuels that we use or that we market through our facility. So we are seeing an increase in that. And as far as the, just like as a fact, looking at our potential to emit when volatile organic compounds is really the one thing that's the largest number that sticks out there. We're operating at about 35% of that emission potential to emit limit that's in our permit. But that number has gone down significantly over the last 10 or 15 years through improvements in the types of equipment and the control devices, especially within the internal floating roof tanks that store the gasoline and ethanol products. So we've seen a pretty steady decrease over the past 10 years. And then your third question was something that was related to co-pollutants, and if you could be more specific, I want to do my best to answer.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. My third question kind of is along the same line, where you're talking about that potential to emit. Your permit earlier in the presentation, it said that the permits were not being increased, but I was wondering if you could speak more to future planning to continue decreasing emissions.
Certainly, yeah, and as our it changes with the products that we store, but a lot of it is the efficiency of the equipment and the control devices that we use. So our control devices are what New Jersey considers to be state of the art, I believe is the proper term. And so our units are operating at below those levels, and we regularly stack test those to ensure that they are operating at that high level. So we maintain our equipment and try to keep it running and as best we can. But it's difficult to make reductions when we're utilizing the same fuel products, or that's the customer or industry demand is still for a certain amount of gasoline products. And it's very difficult to decrease those emissions, but through efforts of putting more efficient control devices, the floating roof designs have better seals, thanks to the efforts of the New Jersey DP and their RACT tank initiative that they rolled out over the past 10 to 14 years. That has helped us see a dramatic reduction in our VOC emissions.
Thank you for that. I appreciate your clarification.
I hope I did my best to answer your question off the cuff there.
Thanks so much, Don. We have a couple questions in the QA chat from Janice Relaford. Janice, do you want to come off mute, or do you want me just to read your question? I think you're on now,
Good evening,
Janice.
everyone. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so good evening. I was just trying to understand when you spoke about the stressors in the city of Linden, and you said that there was only 7. Out of those 7 stressors, you were saying that, and correct me if I misunderstood, those 7 stressors will not be any worse than what they are now, or they will remain at the same level that they are now?
Well, I said
Am I understanding that correctly?
Citgo is not going to add additional to the stressors that are in the area. So the cumulative stressors is made up of a lot of different companies and a lot of different areas, and a lot of different types of stressors. And so I pointed out that Citgo impacts 7 of the 22. The other stressors are things like contaminated sites, lack of tree canopy, lack of open space. So that kind of stuff, like Citgo doesn't have an impact on. They're not reducing open space. They're not reducing tree canopy. So that's kind of how it was.
Okay, but would it be any additional stressors in terms of the air quality?
Josh, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah, and I think that comes back to when I was talking about those administrative changes and the permit cleanup that the facility has done. So based on the changes that are at the facility, that would not increase the adverse stressors.
Okay, and I just have one more concern. Does Citgo put in like things like air quality monitors around the particular areas that, of that neighborhood? Like, is it possible, or has the studies been done with air quality monitoring boards or any type of equipment like that?
Who wants to take that one, Don or Josh?
So I can say that we have monitors on the equipment that we utilize to make sure that it's operating properly. It is a bit of a challenge, being that the properties down in that area, when you look at a Google map, all you see are white circles because it's just the location that's close to the port and has access to water and pipelines and highways. That was the area that a lot of the terminals were built in 100 years ago, and the refinery operates just to the north of us. But with all of those facilities, it would be a challenge to assign where air quality, where an air sample really was representing, whether it was the 16 lanes of traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike, or was it something from one of us operating a vapor combustion unit, or test firing some of our emergency fire pump engines, or the hundreds of other tanks that are around it. That would certainly present a challenge as to understanding that. Josh, I know that the EPA and the DEP have done air quality studies across this area, but I cannot put my finger on any particular study. So it would be something that we would have to get back to you on if we were to be able to provide a link to something that one of the state agencies have done.
Right, Don. I think we should do a little more digging on that one.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Sure.
Thanks, Janice.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Janice. We do have your email address, so we will follow up with you with additional information. Anybody else have any public comment? Want to come off mute? We have nothing else in the Q&A. Okay. Couple hands raised. I'm going to go to Cassandia.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks for
Hi.
joining.
Yes, my name is Cassandia Bellevue. I am with Earth Justice. I apologize if you might have mentioned this at the very beginning of your presentation. I had a conflict and I was a little late, but would you mind telling me where you are getting the fuel that you're storing from? Is it being pumped by pipeline from the nearby refinery or something, or is it being trucked in? How does this fuel get into the tanks?
Okay, yeah, I'll take that question for you. This is Don. I apologize, by the way, of not having access to show my face and video and to be a little more personal. But I just had a technical difficulty where my phone was just not allowing me to log into to the Zoom call. So I'm just here on audio. But to answer your question, Sandy, the Linden facility, our Citgo-Linden facility, is unique in that it has connections to several pipelines from our adjacent neighbors, the other pipeline companies in the area, and we ship products are shipped into the terminal and fill our storage tanks by pipeline. We also ship our petroleum products out through pipelines to the local airports. We ship our jet fuel. Customers in different facilities will ask for different products, and so we ship products in and out of our facility by pipeline. We also have a dock along the Arthur Kill River, and there we have 2 barge berths and a ship's berth where we can either take in cargoes from local U.S. facilities. Sometimes we bring in foreign cargoes of finished products. It just depends on what the market holds. It really is a global commodity, and so we bring in products through pipeline. and our marine facilities. And we also ship them out through our pipelines, our marine facilities, as well as our truck rack. And so our truck rack is what loads the tanker trucks that you see on the roads that deliver the products to service stations or to heating oil tanks or to boilers for schools, whatever the use is for our refined products, be it gasoline or diesel fuel products, or even our jet kerosene products are loaded at our truck rack and sent to various smaller airports around the area that aren't connected through a large pipeline. I hope that wasn't too long-winded of a response.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Don. Brooke has her hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Apologies, I have another question for you all. I don't think this was covered in the presentation, so I apologize if this is a bit of an ignorant question, but when you're speaking about loading materials onto ships and or trucks, are you requiring that those trucks and ships turn off while you're loading as a mechanism of decreasing emissions, or are they continued to run while you're loading onto them?
Oh, that's actually, of course, the idling issue is one that I'm certain that we're concerned with because it's unnecessary. But no, the vehicles are required primarily from a safety perspective, that once they pull into our truck loading rack, that they are shut off, as well as all other types of electronic devices, because the products that are being loaded there, are flammable. And so the trucks are shut off while they're loaded, and we don't allow idling. They pull in, they stop, they do their safety walk around to make sure that their truck is ready to pull into our loading rack. And then when they come in, they shut it off, and then they pull out and take off onto the highway.
That's great to hear. Thank you for clarifying that.
The same goes for the most part. The same goes for barges. If we're loading a barge, we're providing the flow of product onto the barge, and so it's just receiving. If it's the barge is transferring to us, then they have to utilize their pumps, whether it's a barge or a ship, to pump the product to us.
All right. Thanks so much, Don. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right. Bella, can you go to the next slide? Well, thanks everyone for joining tonight. We really appreciate it. As I mentioned before, the comment period is 60 days plus. You can comment tonight, which you did, or before or after the comment period, before or after the information session during that 60-day comment period at the email address on your screen or the mailing address on your screen. We definitely welcome your comments. Hopefully we answered your comments tonight. For any comments and questions that we did not answer, like I mentioned, we'll be following up directly with people by email. Also putting together a report at the end of this comment period with all the comments that were received, what Citgo's responses have been, and that will also be posted on the DEP's EJ website. Next slide. And this is just our final slide. Definitely an iconic image to send you away with right on the New Jersey Turnpike. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email us or mail us, and we appreciate your time today. One last call for any last comments. Any last comments? All right, folks. Have a great night. Appreciate you joining.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.